The romantic comedy, or the rom-com, is a genre that the general public believes to be overwhelmingly enjoyed by mostly women. This is, of course, in spite of the fact that many classic rom-coms are told from a male perspective. One of the common beliefs that men tend to have about rom-coms is that they portray men unrealistically and for female audiences. Thus, rom-coms are typically dubbed as chick flicks and mostly ignored by male audiences. But I believe that men can learn more about how to attract women by understanding the male characters in these romantic comedies. I mean, after all, these characters were written to be attractive to the average woman, and while these films aren't always directed or written by women, they do have the task of making a male character that primarily female audiences love, or at the very least, don't mind cheering for. And with that in mind, I will be taking a look at 3 of my favorite rom-coms to discuss the female gaze of the romantic comedy. So, spoilers incoming for obvious reasons. And with that, what better way to start off this video than with one of the all-time greats of the genre, When Harry Met Sally. This film was groundbreaking in its time and still remains one of, if not the best romance movies to this day. And there's no one reason why this film is so influential. It has everything from a stellar screenplay, witty dialogue, timeless scenes that have etched themselves in cinema and pop culture history, and without a doubt, amazing chemistry between its 2 leads, one of whom, Billy Crystal, is the subject for this incoming section. A lot of men seem to disparage the rom-com genre because they believe that these films are only ever made with your typical Hollywood hot guys, and that they think movies like this only work because of how attractive the male lead is, but Billy Crystal in this movie is the complete antithesis of this idea. Look, he's not ugly, but he's no young Harrison Ford or Mel Gibson. Compared to the other stars of his time, Crystal isn't exactly a looker. At 5'7", he's on the shorter end too, and his most prominent feature isn't his jawline or washboard abs, but his forehead. But he still managed to and continues to captivate the hearts of women everywhere with his performance as Harry Burns because of his charisma. See, Crystal has a way with words, that's why he's a successful stand-up comedian, and his calm delivery of his lines made him such a heartthrob in his prime, despite not looking like your typical Hollywood hot guy. If you watch Crystal's performance closely in this film, you notice Harry's wit and charisma more than anything else. When Sally has something funny to say, Harry always counters with something similar. In a movie where ultimately not a lot happens, it's the insane chemistry between the 2 leads and their banter that keeps the audience engaged. Harry Burns in this movie shows that women aren't just attracted to the superficial and the physical. Women want to have intelligent conversations and be mentally stimulated by engaging banter. And very interestingly, it's been shown time and time again that men don't need to be the handsomest in the room to be able to attract women. Over the years, there have been a number of studies that show that while women may claim to want an attractive partner, attraction for a woman doesn't end at physical characteristics. While on average men preferred more physically attractive romantic partners, women generally gravitated towards men who are more emotionally stable, relatable, or had more interesting personalities. And famously, these are things that are within a man's control. You can learn to be funny, to be charismatic, and to be socially magnetic. That's why for a man, being physically unattractive isn't the be-all end-all, at least not on the same level that it would have been for a woman. And while, yeah, men can't control things like their height, there are a lot of other factors that are undoubtedly within their control, such as physique, body fat percentage, personality, income, etc. So for men who feel insecure about their height, remember that in perhaps one of the greatest love stories in fiction, Harry is actually no taller than Sally. And speaking of self-improvement, there's another beloved rom-com where the main character's journey towards self-improvement is what really makes them attractive, even if he's already being played by the masculine icon Bradley Cooper. And of course, I'm talking about 2012 Silver Linings Playbook. This film is about Pat, who, like I mentioned earlier, is portrayed by Bradley Cooper. And the character has been recently discharged from a mental health facility and been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, otherwise known as BPD. He was stuck there because on one fateful day, he found his wife, Nikki, with another man and almost beat that man to death. And immediately after leaving the facility, his priority is fixing his life and getting back with her. Except Nikki is gone. She seemingly wants nothing to do with Pat, setting up a restraining order and having no means of contact between the two. Most people would see that there is absolutely no hope left for them as a couple. And it wouldn't be a stretch for people to think that Pat would fall into a great depression, become pessimistic, resort to some kind of vice, and just let the sadness of being left by his wife consume him. But Pat didn't let that happen. For some reason, Pat's reaction was delusionally optimistic. He never doubted that his wife will still love him and would eventually make his way back to him, despite all the signs pointing otherwise. Instead, against all reason, he chose to believe that he still had a chance with her, and it's because of that belief that he never lost hope and he kept going on with his life. With that belief driving him, he never stopped trying to be a better person. He kept running and working out to stay in shape. He started reading books to be able to relate to Nikki better. He maintained good relationships with the people around him, especially his family, whom he never had the best relationship with previously, and he found chemistry with someone new, someone better for him. And while for most of the movie he was tunnel visioned on getting his wife back, he never stopped improving himself. And though in the end, him and Nikki didn't end up getting back together, he still came out finding love with Tiffany. The Silver Linings Playbook is a beautiful film that shows the beauty in the ugly, the hope in the darkness, and the silver lining to every storm cloud. If it weren't for the events of the story, Pat never would have found a real romantic connection with Tiffany, a new partner that truly loved him. But I also want to point out that Pat was not a perfect guy. He's blunt to a fault, he's inconsiderate about other people's feelings, he doesn't understand the importance of him taking his medication, and he's a volatile individual. But just because he's not perfect and that he'll never be perfect, that doesn't mean he can't work on himself. And it's that drive to improve himself and his living conditions that make him not only a compelling protagonist, but an attractive man. Because ambition is attractive. Nobody wants to date someone, woman or man, who will wallow in self-pity and blame the world for their faults, rather than changing what they can. The problem with bad men is that they believe that they're without flaw, and they instead go on to blame women for not choosing them. But what they don't understand is that nobody is entitled to romantic attention. Everybody is worthy of love, but nobody has an obligation to love you. And that's just something that a lot of men don't get. As much as he missed her and longed for her to come back, Pat never complained that Nikki didn't love him anymore. He instead chose to believe that he was already worthy of love and capable of becoming an even better person on top of that. His drive to become a better man and putting in the work without complaining is what makes him a better man and what allows him to find love in someone else. Pat doesn't claim to be perfect and without flaw. He doesn't blame Nikki for putting distance between them. He simply puts on the trash bag and puts in the work. And while we're here, let's also talk about Tiffany, Pat's true love, because she's just as important to this message, because she embodies the second half of it. Self-improvement is beautiful, and people should pursue it. But you don't need to be perfect or flawless to be worth loving. You just need to find someone who will live with your flaws. Because Tiffany is portrayed as a damaged character just like Pat, but their relationship is beautiful because where other people see flaws, they find comfort. Tiffany lacks a filter, but Pat doesn't mind because she appreciates her bluntness. Pat is delusional, thinking that he can get Nikki back, but Tiffany finds his hopefulness endearing and even inspiring. They're both crazy whirlwinds that, when they finally meet, find harmony with each other. And speaking of Tiffany, Jennifer Lawrence deservedly won an Oscar for this movie. And as amazing as her performance is in this movie, I actually think that her best scene belongs to a different rom-com. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's no hard feelings. This is the most recent film that I'll be talking about in this video, and while unlike the other two, it's not a must-watch. In fact, it's pretty polarizing, all things considered. It is a movie that I've grown surprisingly fond of. In this film, the canonically 32-year-old Maddie, portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence, is hired by the parents of 19-year-old Percy, a rich kid, to date him unbeknownst to him, so that he can build up his confidence before going to college and she can get a car. And this film shows why he needs it, because Percy is sheltered, awkward, and a dork who lacks life experience because of his upbringing. But it's precisely this naivete that gives him an innocence that allows him to get closer to Lawrence's character than any other man could have. Because Percy is innocent. And he's old-fashioned in the sense that he wants to have a connection with someone before having sex with her. And it's this sensitivity that surprises Maddie, a character that's used to meaningless sex and flings, and because of her own personal trauma, has broken the hearts of countless men and apparently even some women. And let's talk a bit about Maddie. While the film's premise is definitely creepy, I also want to point out that the film does not try to paint Maddie as a good person. Maddie is, for lack of a better term, a bitch. But going back to Percy, while Maddie is only trying to have sex with Percy to get a car, He doesn't know this and actually wants to get to know her. And it's through their interactions that we find out that he's actually incredibly attentive. So he takes notes of things in an effort to impress Maddie. He finds out that Maddie didn't get to attend prom, so he even throws her a personal prom. And he takes note of a song that was playing on their first date, Man-Eater by Daryl Hall and John Oates, which he performs while singing at a fancy restaurant. And it's in this scene that Lawrence's character realizes that Percy isn't just a boy 13 years her junior, but a confident young man who's talented, charming, and handsome. But at the same time, his choice of song destroys her inside. Because while Percy is only playing it because of its significance to their relationship, Maddie hears a song about a horrible woman who only cares about herself. A woman who she can't help but paint herself as. And in this moment, she realizes two things. He's a good man, and she's a horrible woman. And she absolutely nails this in this scene, no words needed. But going back to the female gaze in these films, there's a common ground that all three of these characters, and a lot of other rom-com male characters, share in their portrayal that allows them to win the hearts of their respective love interests and the audiences who watch them. And it's because at their core, they respect women and treat them like people. And that basis of respect is what allowed romance to flourish. For the longest time, Harry didn't believe that men and women could be friends. In fact, when he first met Sally, he almost immediately tried to sleep with her. But as they grew older, he also grew to understand that men and women could indeed be friends, and he was immature for thinking otherwise. He had a genuine friendship with Sally, and it just so happened that that same friendship blossomed into a beautiful romance. He didn't befriend Sally in an effort for her to fall in love with him. He became friends with her because they clicked and enjoyed each other's company. And the way he realized and professed his love is also nothing short of amazing. He noticed all of Sally's quirks and oddities and told her that he was willing to go the rest of their lives in spite of them, maybe even because of them. Then in the Silver Linings Playbook, Tiffany was initially angry at Pat because she believed that he judged her for her actions and her past, but she later found out that Pat actually viewed her as an individual. In his words, Tiffany is smart, sensitive, and artistic, and he tells another dude who's just trying to smash to bugger off because he's getting in the way of her healing process. And when she sees that Pat respects her, she's actually able to build a friendship with him. And that same thing happens with Percy. It's because he saw Maddie as a person that she was able to open herself up and truly build a connection with him. And while they didn't get together in the end, they were both better off knowing each other and canonically building a friendship off of the events of the film. But with all of this in mind, it's very important to not get things mixed up. Because like I said earlier, nobody is obligated to love you. I'm not saying that respecting women entitles you to their affection, but having healthy relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or even familial, always starts with respect.